I'm Ed Adams, and you're listening to the AAFCA Podcast. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the AAFCA Podcast. And on today's show, we talk to two athletes who successfully transitioned from sports to entertainment, Deon Taylor and Ephraim Salaam. I'll give you more details after the break. The AAFCA Podcast is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. Before we jump into the interview, let me share some numbers with you. Did you know that less than 2% of all college athletes go pro? And only 39% of people in the U.S. successfully change careers. And to top all that, when it comes to Black Americans in Hollywood, the numbers are even smaller. In a recent report by McKinsey & Company, Blacks represent about 6% of directors and producers, and only 4% of writers. So that transition from sports into the entertainment game is slim. But guess what? When it comes to that transition from sports to entertainment, we have seen a lot of success stories. And there's no greater example of people charting their own path into the industry than longtime friends Deon Taylor and Ephraim Salaam. These two go way back, and I mean way back. And their story from stadium to Hollywood is truly inspiring. Deon Taylor is the epitome of DIY independent filmmaking. After leaving a successful career with the NBA Entertainment League, he switched gears, creating his own film company, Hidden Empire Film Group, and put out his first film, Dead Tone, that he wrote, directed, and produced in 2007. Since then, Deon's name has been attached as producer or director for over 20 projects, including Up All Night, Meet the Blacks, Black and Blue, and more underway. Offensive tackle Ephraim Salaam played 11 seasons in the NFL with teams including the Atlanta Falcons, the Denver Broncos, Detroit Lions, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. But during that time, he was also working with Deon on several of his projects as a producer, and he was even cast in one of Deon's projects, Dark Christmas. But Ephraim charted his own path to get a seat at the table. His latest project was writing on the hit show Bel-Air, a reimagined dramatic take on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I had a chance to speak with these two friends via Zoom about their early days in sports, their transition to entertainment, and the lessons they've learned along the way. So Deon and Ephraim, welcome to the AAFCA Podcast. Thanks for being a part of it today.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
All right. So look, I was doing my research and I just kind of noticed that you two have been like rolling for a while now. I mean, starting up at Florida High School and then later on to like San Diego State University. And I just wanted you to like talk to me about what it was like to grow up together, like growing up together, playing sports together.
Well, I'll start because Deon was playing sports well before I was. And we met. I knew of Deon's prowess. This started back in the 7th grade for me. Deon was in the 8th grade. We went to James Rutter Junior High, and he was on the basketball team. He was one of the only guys that can almost dunk in the 8th grade.
Oh wow!
He was one of the only guys that could get like 2 fingers on the rim in the 8th grade. So just going to those games and watching this kid with a grown man's body, which was weird to see. It started there. The next year I went to the 8th grade. Deon went back to Gary, Indiana for the 9th grade. And then we reconnected at Florida High when I was a freshman and he was a sophomore. And we have been, brothers ever since. And he was the one who used to get me up using colorful language. And we used to go to the park or to the elementary school and just play basketball all day. And for people who don't understand, in Sacramento in the summer, it can get up to 110, 111 degrees. And for 2 kids who didn't have any money for refreshments and beverages and all of that, I remember early on, we would be playing basketball one-on-one together. And it would be so hot in between points, we would have to go stand in the shade. and you couldn't drink out of the water fountain because the water was like 3,000 degrees. Like, am I lying, D?
No, you're right. You're right. You're 100% right.
Y'all should have brought some tea bags or something.
But that's where it all began for us in terms of me and my love for sport. And it's funny enough because Deon got me into basketball, and another one of our friends, John Hellman, he got me into playing football because he was playing, and we used to hang out at his house a lot. And after the first day of high school, he was like, hey, I got to go to football practice. And then I end up joining the football team a couple of days later. And that was like my first introduction into actually playing sports. And that was in 9th grade.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
Okay. So like during that time, just curious, was Hollywood or doing anything that you're currently doing now was even on your radar? Because it sounds like you were like dedicated to the game.
No, we just tried to survive, man. We wanted to survive. And once we start, really immersing ourselves into the sports world, it was just, that's what we needed. We needed that type of focus. But I tell you where entertainment and movies came into play for us. Mm-hmm. Back then, movie theaters, like they were matinees and they were like $1, right? And when it's 110 degrees outside, we used to have this state theater in Sacramento that, you could pay $1 and you can go in there and it'd be air conditioned. And you can sit in there and you can watch a movie. And sometimes we found ourselves watching 3-4 movies off that $1. So our love for movie and entertainment was there from an early age. We used to just sit and watch videos until videos broke. This was VHS. We had to put the tape in. We watched one of our favorite movies, Trading Places, so much the tape turned off. Right? Like,
oh, wow.
In the middle of the movie, it'd be like, I'm a karate man. Right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So entertainment has always been a part of our escape growing up.
Okay. All right. And so like cut to you all after college, Deon, you went to go play basketball, and then Ephraim, you went and got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Won't bring it up again. All right. But Deon, like talk to me about, because like you made the transition sooner into entertainment, correct? So talk to me about the how and why you decided to leave basketball and go into filmmaking.
I don't know if there's ever a moment. Maybe some people have that gift where something says, it's time now. Sometimes life just happens and worlds collide. For me, it was a very interesting paradigm in terms of when I answer this question a lot, because like Ephraim was just talking about earlier, you don't notice different things that are happening in your life until later, until you really have a moment of reflection where you go like, wow, that was with me the whole time. You know what I mean? And that could be for whatever career it is. It could be broadcast, it could be writing, it could be, a mechanic. You're like, oh man, I always loved cars. And then 40 years old, you have your own auto mechanic shop, right? Like, you just used to do that as a hobby, or used to cut hair on the basketball team and all of a sudden now you're a barber. You know what I mean? For me, that moment was watching films, growing up, being a fan of movies, reciting films, screaming and yelling, and just being dumb as hell when you're growing up. You know what I mean? And what was interesting about me and Ephraim is we have a lot of the same backgrounds in terms of growing up. I came from Gary, Indiana. He came from LA. I tried California for a year. It didn't work. You know what I mean? So I went back. And a lot of my upbringing had always been centered around film. And, my mom playing a bunch of music when you're growing up, those types of things just kind of interest you in entertainment early, right? When I get over to East Germany and I'm playing ball and I work my ass off to even get over to that small market, I found myself reaching back into that bag of movies. You know what I mean? I found myself watching a bunch of stuff over and over again because I didn't speak the language. I was in East Germany. It's the middle of winter time. And I became fascinated with film. Like, I don't even know how or why. I just became fascinated with the idea of it. And I ended up having an idea for a movie. Now, previous to that, which is pretty crazy, myself, my cousin, Ephraim, a couple of my best friends, we had a VHS a camera. And for some odd reason, this just, you got to just, this life, man, for some odd reason, I found myself making a movie one day. Like, I was like, yo, we should make a movie. It's the craziest time ever. And I'm like, and they were like, what you mean? I'm like, man, let's do this karate horror movie. And everybody's like, what the? And for like half the summer, literally, we ran around with this camcorder shooting this movie. And
wow.
And I think back on it now. So then I'm in Germany, I'm doing what I'm doing. And then I had the idea of a film there. I came back. Ethan was actually getting ready to go he was making his run to the Super Bowl at the time. And he's the first person I pitched this film to. He got it, kind of completed my sentence on that movie. And he was the first person to be like, yo, that's a great idea. He don't have no money. He in the NFL. He put up his own money first. Like, yo, I'm in for a couple $100,000. And then the rest was like, all right, well, let's try to figure out how to do this. I didn't realize that journey would be almost a 3.5-year journey of trying to get a movie made. And that's kind of where the bug came from, man. I don't even know. I just quit. And today I don't even know why. Sometimes I think like, damn, man, like, I had a couple more offers. I could have played a few more places. I got some camp stuff that was going on for the league. And I was just like, for some reason, this idea, this thought of film, it grabbed me in the same way basketball grabbed me. Like I was hooked and I was trying to do it. And it's interesting because a lot of that same energy you would like that I got early on about scholarship, basketball, man, only one kid out of this many kids gonna make it. All that stuff that we all heard, me and him especially, it was the same energy I got with film. It was the same, man, you got, man, you know what I mean? People trying to make a movie, and do you know what I mean? People want to do this, you know what I mean? Man, it's the worst investment on earth is for somebody to give you money for a film. All of that. And it was like that world I knew that world. And for some reason, I was like, I'm going to press through and I'm going to push through. And man, crazy enough, we ended up getting that first movie made, which was called 75. Mm-hmm. And even more crazy than that, we got that movie made with a bunch of athletes. We got that movie made with a bunch of just people that you would never think would, you know what I mean? People that were very interested in film, but never got an opportunity. And we got to make that movie, and that was pretty incredible. Kyle Turley at the time, who was a gigantic, I mean, I think Kyle played for the Saints at the time, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Kyle Turley was our killer. He was also an investor. Ray Crockett, who was a Hall of Famer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, those guys, like, all stepped in, and it was the first time I was introduced to Robert Smith. You know what I mean? And that world kind of came together. And what I didn't realize at the time, and what Ephraim didn't realize at the time, or Roxanne and all the people that was around us, was that was our film school. Like, that was our USC. You know what I mean? Like, we never went to film school. We never had an opportunity to go to film school. We didn't even know what the hell we was doing. But that whole raising capital, writing a script, casting, scratching our head, trying to figure out, like, how does this work? What is that? Finding distribution took another 3 years, right? All of that, you know, being sued, you know, getting in trouble. Like, people like, yo, you can't do business like this. Like, oh, I didn't know. And I often chalk that up to what I like to call, for most African-American and brown people in this country, I call that first generation business people, right? There's no one in my life or that I could point to in my world that was a film person or a director or worked in a distribution company or, right? And most times, you know, we're first generation, whatever that is, first generation business owner, first generation creator, first generation company owner, you know what I mean? CEO. And sometimes, you know, more than others, we probably only get one shot because we fail. And then we never tried again because you didn't either ran out of money, struck out, had a really hard time, and you like, I ain't never doing that again. Business is hard, film is hard, you know what I mean? But we figured it out. And it's the craziest thing when I look at Ephraim all the time, I be like, damn, that's crazy, man. Like I slept in the water bed with this dude. You know what I mean? Like me and him slept on the floor together. Like, you know, we got up and hooped, you know, all day with a dream of like just trying to do this, you know, no money, no resources. And then to now look across him and go like, wow, man, like at 40 plus years old, wow, like he had a wonderful career in football. And I had, you know, whatever my career was at basketball. Now it's like, damn, we have a whole nother career. Man, that's something where you got to be like, man, life is amazing that way.
Right.
I think the biggest thing to add on to that with Deon is the thing that never changed, whether it be sport or entertainment, was the dream was always there. Right? The dream was always there. We always wanted more. And I remember in that same waterbed, us looking up at the ceiling, he had all these Jordan posters all over the room, which drove me crazy. I was a Laker fan. He's a Bulls fan. So, you know, this is in the 80s. We're in the 80s. And we're going through all 80s, 90s. So we're going through that whole dynamic. And we used to just sit and just talk about what we wanted to do, the things that we wanted to accomplish. Man, it'd be crazy if this could happen. Man, if I'm going to get that car. And, I can't wait till we can get all the shoes that we couldn't afford back then. And so the one thing we always have done, and the thing that we continue to do now as, you know, middle-aged fathers and husbands, is we continue to dream still. Right today, we continue to dream and continue to chase those dreams. And I think that's the fuel that keeps that success and that wanting to have more. That's the fuel that keeps it going.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. That's really nice, man. I like that idea. When you think, I was just thinking about what you said earlier and about how like first generation business, right? And you started Hidden Empire Film Group. And I wanted to know, like, how did that genesis happen based on what you just kind of told me about when you didn't know about the industry and you didn't know the right things to do, but you did the right thing by starting your own company and putting your own movies out. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the genesis of, you know, and I like to, you know, for my story and for our story, and I think this represents Ephraim as well. The fabric that started the company was being told no, right? Like I said, there's a fight or flee moment in your life, right? Where it's also with fatherhood. You'll see some people, you know, your girl be like, yo, I'm pregnant. And you have some guys that'll be like, oh, I'm cool. I'm gonna have nothing to do with that and run. You have other guys, it will completely change your life. The thing that was the scariest to you by having a child and all that, it will make you grow up fast. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, oh man, I gotta kind of do that. Hidden Empire was sparked and the company was built off the energy of being told no. In other words, I'd never intended to run around Hollywood and make movies by myself. The idea was to live the life that Ephraim is living now, right? The idea is to say, oh man, wouldn't it be dope to write on Bel-Air? You know what I mean? And like go and have an interview with them, or someone says, wow, you really got it, kid. Come on over and let me give you a shot. That is the paradigm in the world that you wanted to be in. See, there's a little bit of a change here. Ephraim is blessed, and I am blessed in an amazing way because a shift happened in Hollywood over the last couple of years. When the George Floyd incident happened, and we started screaming BLM, Black Lives Matter, and not the organization, but our lives matter, and the world kind of took to the streets, Hollywood was on that hit list where people was like, yo, this shit got to change. And it's got to change now. And y'all got to open up the doors and make more diversity for women, LGBTQ, Black men, whatever it is, we need it. And so now a fair shot is a kid from the NFL who's an excellent writer, has a really, really good take on something, and that idea is genuinely accepted. Enter Ephraim, right? Like before, it would have been like, oh, we got one black writer already, man. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm being honest. And now he would have been scurrying around Hollywood trying to figure out, damn, what do I fit? Because everybody got the quota of one black writer, or they don't have any black writers, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're in that place where it works, right? Because he's deserving of it because he's an excellent writer. He doesn't have to, kiss ass and beg. And yes, a little bit of that still has to happen, but he has a shot because there's a shot been created for him. Yeah. When we started doing film 15, 16, 17 years ago, I get pointed at 2 filmmakers that were consistently making a movie, and they were fighting to make that movie. That was John Singleton and Spike Lee, right? Those are the greatest filmmakers that we had at that era that were still fighting the system like, yo, why can't I get a movie made? Do you know what I mean? There was still Spike Lee questioning the studio, why couldn't he make Malcolm X? It was still John Singleton trying to figure out how does he make his next movie? You know what I mean? And what would that movie be? So for me, I went around with the script in hand, with the idea, and 75 was that first film where I was like, man, can we? And everyone was like, no, we cannot. No. Everywhere I went. And then I would also be a sponge to this, and it's important for the listeners to hear this, meaning what's wrong with it, right? Because at some point you got to say, all right, well, shit, what's wrong with the movie? Are you just not into horror? Because horror been working since, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. You know what I mean? So it's like, so does that not work? Or what's wrong? And remember, I'm making a horror movie when Eli Roth is hot, when Wes Craven is hot, when Hills Have Eyes is breaking, when Saw is breaking, when high tension. I'm making a horror movie when horror is at the height, and everyone's like, "Oh, we want horror movie." So we have to say, "Hey, what's wrong with the movie?" So when you tell me, when you can't really explain to me what that is, but you're telling me no, then I say, okay, what's the problem with me? You know what I mean? So what happens is we become the product of no. Where everyone told us no, we decided that we would eventually tell ourselves yes. And how do we tell ourselves yes? We said, let's go get our own money and make our own goddamn movie. You know what I mean? And then that's how that started. So after we made one, we said, wow, we figured this out. Now we need to figure out how you get a movie out to people. That's another school, right? So that's another 3 years of like, oh, what do you have to do? And then after that, we said, well, shit, we know how to make them. Now we got to figure out distribution. So now turning on the machine to make them is what we began to do. And as we made films, we learned that over the course of time, studios now go, well, wow, now you shifted into a business venture where you're not a fragment of it, but you're now a seller. And that's a big deal, right? Now you're talking about ownership. Now we didn't kind of moonwalk into ownership. We didn't know what we were doing. No one was like, yo, we're going to build this company. We're going to sell these people the movies and then we're going to have the idea. It was like, no, we unconventionally, we figured out like, wow, look, if you keep making movies this way, you could create a library. And if you create a library, then you can actually sell a library. And if you sell a library, you can go create another company. This is what Warner Brothers is, New Line is, Lionsgate is, right? DreamWorks is. This is a group of people creating a bunch of content, creating a library, and selling it multiples on top of multiples. And we figured out, and then Tyler Perry came along, and we seen how that worked. You know what I mean? We was like, wow. And then Jason Blum came along, and we seen how that worked. And then we said, well, wow, I guess we got a company called Hidden Empire because no one even knew what we was building over here. And now everyone knows. So we kind of put that name in there like we were hidden for a long time, but we were trying to build an empire. No one believed in us but ourselves.
Oh man, that's awesome. Oh, and then props for like bringing in that Motown reunion with Michael Jackson doing the moonwalk, blowing everybody's mind. I just want to put that out there. That was awesome. Gotta remind people, change the world. All right, so so now, like Ephraim, like your journey is a little different, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as much as y'all were rolling together, like making these films. I know you produced a couple of them. You went on a really different path for your journey. Can you talk a little bit about how you went from like, you know, from being athlete to analyst to producer, and now you're a writer?
So for me, I was a 7th round draft pick in 1998 for the Atlanta Falcons. That year we had ultimate success, went to the Super Bowl. And so it was a lot of energy around that in the city, right? Like Atlanta was popping. And I was approached by V103 and Portia Fox, who was a disc jockey at the time, to come and do a segment every Friday on the radio called Falcon Fridays with Ephraim Salaam and Portia Fox. And so I was like, of course. So I did it. I got a chance to really reach out to fans. They got a chance to talk to me. It was fun. So I, like the last half of that season, I started doing that, which put a bug in me. I was like, oh, okay, well, I like it. This is pretty cool. So let me continue with it. But what that did, it was unlocked another aspect of what entertainment was, what sport was, right? There's the on the field aspect of it, but then there's also the media aspect of it, right? The entertaining outside the field and building a brand aspect of it, which I was lucky to learn early at 21, 22 years old. And being a 7th round draft pick, I always felt like it could be over at any moment. No matter if I was starting, if I was playing well. Sports is so, they refuse to let you, first impressions are everything in sport. And it takes years and years and years for you to climb out of that. What do they talk about Brady? Tom Brady, 2 years after I was the 199th pick in the draft, Tom Brady was the 199th pick in the draft, right? But they still talk about he was the 199th pick in the draft. Now, if you don't have the type of career that Tom Brady has, then you're just a 199th draft pick. And so for me, I was always worried like this could be over at any time. So let me start trying to open doors while I could. And that was through entertainment. That was through the radio. When I left there, I went to Denver, and I had a radio show and a TV show in every market I played with after that. And I had a tremendous publicist. Her name is Denise White. She's still my publicist now. She runs Entertainers and Athletes Group, she was paramount in my success off the field, because there was no market for an offensive lineman to do anything in media. It's not like it is today. It wasn't a bunch of channels and a bunch of, stations. It was, she made sure she got me in the room, and I told her I'd do the rest. So when people saw my personality, and they were like, oh, okay, he knows more than just sports. And it started opening doors for me. And in the off season, I would come out to LA and I would do shows for free. Like the Best Damn Sports Show, when I was on, I hosted that for free. I was doing shows for like gift certificates to Tommy Bahamas. Like, it wasn't about the money for me. It was about the experience, and then to meeting the people, the execs, and building up this catalog so people would be like, oh, he's really good at that. And whenever someone would cancel, because athletes are flaky sometimes, whenever they would cancel, I just jumped right in. I could be there in 20 minutes. Boom. Whatever that was, I said yes to everything. And over the years, I started building out this brand, right? Which turned into, right when I retired in 2010, ESPN offered me a job, but I didn't want to move out to Connecticut. Right after that, Fox Sports 1 was launching. They were like, hey, we want you to be a part of this. I took that job. And then CNN came when all of the political and social unrest started happening. So I became a correspondent for CNN. All the while, Deon was building this wonderful company, right? The thing that I love the most about all of this, and all this was running parallel. I would be doing whatever I'm doing. Deon would call me and be like, hey, I want you to read something. Or I got an idea for something. Because that's how it started. When he called me, I was like, I got an idea for a movie, which was 75. That's the language we use, right? So when he calls me, or he texts me, yo, read this, or what do you think about this? Or I got an idea for something. I thrived with that. I love that. I'd read a script and immediately I'd be like, hey, he'd be like, what do you think? I'd be like, okay, here, boom, boom, boom. What about this? What if they say this? And what if this? He always allowed me to be immersed in the project, but be heard, right? But to be heard. Like, that's the thing, you want to be heard. It's one thing for someone to trust you, but it's another thing for them to use that, right? Those ideas and all of that. And that was like the real genesis of watching him, his vision behind the camera and how he directed and how he could rewrite a whole scene on the day. Like, you never should do this as a director, right? Like, I'll tell you this, don't do this, because time is money when those cameras are rolling. When you're in principal photography, when you're shooting a movie and the director is looking at the script and he's like, no, that ain't gonna work. Let's take a little break. And I watched him go in and rewrite scenes like on the spot and get them to the actors and have a meeting with them and pick right back up after lunch and make it hotter. And I was like, that's a superpower, right? Like, Deon's a director and a producer. He's also a writer. That's a superpower. None of us went to school for this. We just talk shit and laugh and goofy. And Deon is a habitual storyteller. Okay. Right. He could take an incident that we all were, Ed, if you, me, and Deon were in something for when we were growing up, Deon would tell that story in front of us, and it'd be extra bells and whistles and all kinds. I'm like, well, I don't remember a clown juggling behind the backboard, like, but that was a gift he had, and just it's hilarious. But it worked when you're in a creative space. All of that counts. And so I took being around the industry and me being an analyst and a correspondent and having ideas of my own, and it transitioned into writing. 4 years ago, my wife got me an introduction to screenplay writing course, because I was always telling her about this movie I had in my head. She was like, just please write it. And I was like, I don't know how to write it. I took that course, and then I wrote my first screenplay, and it just opened up a whole nother level of creativity that I didn't even know that was in there. Every conversation I have, everything I see, I create a show or an idea for a movie. I got an iPhone full of voice memos of movie and show ideas. I've created shows, I've packaged them. Just being in that creative space led me to being able to really hone in on writing television. And that's the current place I am now. And I'm loving every single second of it.
All right. Well, let's just talk about that for a second, because you're now one of the writers and you co-wrote one of the episodes for Bel-Air.
Yes.
So talk to me about we kind of talked a little bit about, which I think is really something important to speak about, which is, after the passing of George Floyd, Hollywood did make changes, and we're seeing like this. I wouldn't call it. We were talking about the golden age, the new golden age of television, right? This happened before George Floyd, but it wasn't shows about people of color. And then there's this new golden age of television that does feature people of color. So can you talk to me a little bit about how did that process of how did you get into that room for Bel-Air, and what has that experience been like for you so far?
Well, I'll tell you this, even our great African-American shows that we grew up on, The Cosby Show, A Different World, Martin, all those shows were written by white people, right? The majority of the writers were white, telling our stories. That was the shift in Hollywood. We had shows, but the shift is we get to tell the story of our shows, right? That's the shift. We get to be the creatives of our shows. And a good friend of mine, the person who got me in, who gave me my first job in Hollywood in terms of writing for television, his name is Chris Collins. He's a good friend of mine. He's my neighbor. and he was working on a project 4 years ago called The Continental, based on the John Wick, the hotel in the John Wick movies. And I was talking to him about an idea I had for a movie, and he was like, "Man, I could really use that type of voice in our writer's room." And I was like, "Okay." Well, I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Are you in the guild?" I was like, "No, I just wrote my first screenplay. No one's ever seen it." And he was like, "All right, I'm gonna make some calls." Right. And about a month and a half process goes by. They allow me to come in through the diversity clause, where it didn't cost the production anything. All right, for the diversity clause, it allowed me to come in and be a part of that without straining the production for someone who hadn't, wasn't even in a guild or hadn't written anything in television. And being in that room and learning and watching and seeing how a writer's room worked, it reminded me of playing sports. It reminded me of a locker room. It reminded me of being on the field and being an offensive lineman and relying on 4 other guys to be on the same page to get a job done, right? So when you're breaking story and you're building out character arcs and you're pitching out a season, everybody has ideas, right? Some ideas are better than others, but what the writer's room does is it expounds on those. Like, I may start with something, someone else will jump right in. "Oh, that'll be great. And then we can do this." And it'll turn into something that's glorious. And that was the thing that allowed me to thrive, because I come from a team background. I come from team sports. I know what it takes to have no ego, right? He didn't want to insult me and bring me in as a staff writer because of all the success I've had in film and my career in sports. I was like, "Look, man, I'll start at the bottom. I'll start at the bottom. You really don't even have to pay me. I mean, it's illegal to do that, but I just want to be a part of it." And that show turned into another show, which turned into another show, which got me to Bel-Air. And Chris Collins was originally the showrunner that helped Morgan Cooper really bring this to light. And he was the person that got me in the room. I met Morgan Cooper, who's a dynamic talent himself, and he had the vision for the reimagining of Bel-Air, and we kind of clicked. And being in that writer's room and having a voice, what is Bel-Air, right? Bel-Air is about a young man who was at home, got into a situation, and he was plucked from that and put in another situation that was deemed a better situation. Mm-hmm. Deon, same thing, Gary, Indiana. Almost all his cousins were killed by gun violence in Gary, Indiana before they moved to California. I was in Inglewood. I grew up in Inglewood, went to Budlong Elementary on 53rd and Slauson, right? Went to school in the Blood neighborhood, grew up in the Crip neighborhood. Very difficult to navigate in the 80s. So my father moved us up to Northern California, where we didn't have that threat of constant gang violence and murder and death and police, all of that. And so this Bel-Air and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, we grew up watching that. It meant something to us because we experienced that. Mm-hmm. We know what it feels like to be taken out of your environment that you grew up in and put in another environment that at the time you don't see as something better for you. But it allowed us to focus on our athletics, right? I don't know if Deon would have been able to be as good as he was in Gary, dealing with all the things he had to deal with on a daily basis. And I know I wouldn't have been out here in LA. I mean, this was the Wild Wild West, like Menace Society and Boys and Hood. That was what was happening. And so it was just natural that I knew through this dramatic lens for the Fresh Prince or Bel-Air, I wanted to tap into that trauma, right? Yeah, Will gets moved from Philly to Bel-Air, and it's really got cars, it got the houses, got all of this stuff. But where's the emotion behind it? What does he feel? And that's why in my episode 5, it was a change in Will. Everything prior to episode 5, Will was trying to go back to Philly. From episode 5 on, it was all about Bel-Air for Will. And we saw his best friend in there, Trey, from home. We saw that relationship sever because Will was trying to evolve and trying to make the best of his situation, and Trey didn't want to lose his friend, and it was just emotional for teenage kids to go through, and Deon and I went through that. So it just fit for us. It just fit for me, and I was very excited to be a part of that. And shout out to the showrunners now, TJ and Rashid Newsom. TJ Brady and Rashid Newsom, they allowed my voice and they allowed me to really spread my wings in that writer's room, man. It was a great group of writers.
Well, people love the show, and we talked a little bit earlier, but, I still want to talk to you about Uncle Phil, but I do appreciate you. One of the things about the show that you just mentioned is that, when things like this happen, when you grow up in a hood, like, a lot of us did, there's a lot of PTSD that young Black men carry with them every day. And, the first couple of episodes, you kept seeing Will reimagining the show and reimagining certain things happening. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was really, really important. So thank you for putting that out there and making sure people knew what that was going on, and also seeing that he can survive it. So putting that out there, I'm done. So I have one more question. I know we're getting close to time, but from our conversations, obviously you two are very dynamic people. But I would imagine people are coming to you constantly asking for advice, specifically more like athletes who want to take a similar path as you did. What do you typically tell people when they say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to last in the league anymore. I don't know what I want to do next, but I saw what you were doing. Like, how do you get started? What do you tell them?
Go ahead, D.
It's a very interesting question, Ed, based on the fact that, I would say, I guess there's two parts for me. If you're an athlete and you're in this and you're playing professional, and look, man, over the course of time, like, I'm happy to have been in relationships with the Matt Barnes and the Baron Davises and all these different, the Bobby Jacksons, all these people that
Willie McGinnis. Yeah.
Willie McGinnis, like all these people, it's been great to be a part of, them seeing my vision early on and being a part of it. My biggest note would be, recently had a conversation with Draymond Green about this as he's starting to create his production company and do his business. Oftentimes when these guys have a lot of money, these people that come around with these production services are people that never built it themselves. They're what I like to call Hollywood studio people, right? People that have had success in being hired and running companies for someone else and da-da-da-da. Now they're like, oh yeah, I'll come run your company. My advice to athletes that are in this position that are thinking about getting into film, getting into television, getting into entertainment, my advice would be to look past those people first and go find the people that are making content independent of a studio. Find those people first, because what you're trying to build, they are the genesis of that. Yeah, you might, because look, man, at the end of the day, anybody could take a couple $1 million and invest it into something that they think is cool, right? But learning this and being a part of this is priceless, and it takes your time, it takes your energy and your effort, and you have to learn this. And you also have to be prepared, man, to, lose. In order for you to understand how successful winning is, you got to actually experience losing. Do you know what I mean? So you have to lose in this business. You know what I mean? If you're trying to learn, you got to understand now, the obligation of how much you lose is up to you. You know what I mean? A loss could be breaking even on the film. A loss could be, damn, we almost lost it all, but we got half of it back. You know what I mean? So, but you have to be prepared. This is the film business. So, and all the rules apply. If you invest into a stock, if you're Kevin Durant, and you drop $10 million into a stock, and the stock washes up and takes all your money, you cannot call the stock market and be like, hey man, give me that bread back. You lost. If you are a film and you invest in a film and the film is made and it gets released and it don't make no money back, you can't say, hey man, give me that bread back. Like, it's, you know what I mean? It's so you have to understand this is the business, and you have to get into that business and learn it, because it is one of the most profitable businesses that you can be in. When people are asked, what do we export in the United States of America? What's the biggest thing we export? We export Batman and Spider-Man and Marvel and Saw and The Intruder and Bel-Air, and right, like this is what we do. So my advice would be to learn it, find those that are discovering it and making it, be a part of those situations. And if I had to give one little bit of advice to someone that is trying to get into this business and really learn what this business is, man, be prepared to have a metaphysical death in this business. Be prepared to lose and to not make it, and to have to scrap and grab one little thing, and then one more little thing gets you to the next little thing, and be prepared for that. Because if you ain't prepared for that, you're not prepared for this business. Point blank, period. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts.
Right along with what Deon said is, before you write a check as an athlete, learn. Right? You need to learn the business before you write the check, because people gonna come to you as soon as they find out you want to be in entertainment. Oh, we got this project. We got Leo attached to it. You got all of these stuff. You get all of these. It's very hard to make a film. It's very hard to make a profitable film, whether it be studio or whatever. You need to learn the business of film, the business of television, right? You need to come around. Before I invest, I'm on the off season. If you guys are shooting, I want to come and learn as much as I can. I want to actually see what a producer does. I want to see what an executive producer does. I remember early on, before I knew any of this, I'd be like, Deon, I want to be a producer. He was like, okay, so what you want to do? I said, I want to be a producer. He was like, what are you going to produce? As a producer, you have to produce something, whether it be an idea in the form of a script, talent, money. Well, all of these things have to happen. The people that make them happen are producers. So just having the name and title doesn't get a film made, right? So you have to learn all of those nuances of the business if you really want to take this seriously. And then once you understand that, and you've surrounded yourself with the right people who you share the same vision with, then it may be an investment opportunity if there's a project that you're passionate about and that you know that the people you're working with can help you facilitate it. That's the most important part of it. Don't be, as athletes, we make so much money, we're quick to write a check and then go away and then come back like, hey, how that money doing, right? Unlike the stock market, that's not how this works, right? Because there are actual people who are working this project, right? And we dealt with a lot of that early on because we were so open and so all encompassing. Hey, like, come be a part of this. Come be a part of this. The people we were bringing in, they didn't understand the business aspect, and we didn't really understand the depth of it as well. It took 15, 16 years to get to for us to be where we are now in terms of this business and understand exactly what that is. Yes. Right? That's a lot of money and a steep learning curve that we have been able to navigate and survive. I mean, kudos to this man here, Deon, for building this company. And you got to remember, this company was being built. I was playing. I had a job. This was his job. right? I was at practice. I was at training camp. I was doing all of those things. And he built a company to when I retired, I had a place to land and be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, when does that ever happen?
Right.
You know what I mean? But someone had to do the leg work. As athletes, we want other people to do the leg work. So you get in there and you start at the bottom and you learn every aspect of the business. That way you can make an informed decision if you do decide to invest. Now, you don't have to invest to be a part of a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to know your skill set and what you can do, whether that be writing, whether that be relationships where you can bring something tangible to the project. All of those things matter.
Awesome. All right. Okay. I know I said it was the last one, but I just, this was a master class in literally like 3 minutes, but I wanted to ask something to kind of wrap things up is that, we know that, yeah, you have to take the L sometimes, you have to do certain things, but we also know that you come from a team environment and now you have this kind of team environment entertainment. I just want to know from the two of you as friends, how do you encourage each other? Like, what do you say to each other to encourage each other to keep moving forward?
I got your back, man. Like for me, I know this, man. This is my brother, right? When things are down or things are unsure, nothing can compare to what we went through growing up together, right? We're alive. We made it. We're successful. The things that we had to do and navigate and sacrifice to sit where we're sitting right now, brother, that's a movie itself. And so he knows I got his back no matter what in the world is happening. I feel the same way about him. Right? We're family, our families, our kids, our wives, we're a family, right? So he knows, and I call him on his bullshit. He calls me on my bullshit. Right? Right? Like, you become successful and then you see yourself or a lot of people telling you, yes, man, yes, that's great. Do that one, do that. And I'm like, wait a minute, man. Wait. Hold on, man. Right? He'll come. If I got an idea, this is going to be dope. But he'd be like, I trust what he has to say. And that's what it's about. It's about the trust. Trust the people that are in the journey with you. Right? That's what it's all about for me. Go ahead, D.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would just end it by saying, like, the encouragement factor for everyone is, is just doing the work. You know what I mean? Like what one thing that's a really cool lesson for all of us, you, Ed, I point this at Gil as well for being a creator. You know what I mean? Like, is, can you access what that pain is? Can you access what it was to not have something? That's all the motivation you need. You know what I mean? Most times, man, when we get a door crack, we're like, you trying to bust through the door. You're like, damn, they cracked the door for me? Or they finna, damn, did they know they sent me this money? You know what I mean? It's like, that energy is all you need to encourage yourself. If you find yourself needing to be encouraged to do something that you've been dreaming about, then I feel like you might not be in the right space. You know what I mean? Like this has to be a world where, look, I bounce the ball for free. I still do. You know what I mean? I still find myself, you go to the local gym and play as hard as you can and scream at people and try to put people in the headlock because you lost the game. That means you love it. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody paying you for that. You know what I mean? So that world is kind of what you have to apply to your dream. You know what I mean? I find myself living with film. Even when film is not paying me, I'm like, damn, what's the next idea? Damn, wonder if you could write this. I wonder if you could create that. Damn, wonder how I could get on the phone with that person. That means you love it. You know what I mean? That means you love it. Some people are blessed enough to, make a bunch of money at this first off. And, I have a buddy, Mark Berg, who made the Saw movie. They done made $2-3 billion off Saw. You know what I mean? I'm sure he loves film, but I don't know if he loves it as much as me. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like, man, if I had made a whole bunch of money, I would be like, yo, I'm turning out 10 movies a year. I'm like, yo, let's make more movies. You know? But there's a difference between, to me, and I'm just using this as an analogy. Kobe Bryant loved basketball. Michael Jordan loved you could tell. Do you know what I mean? You can tell. And you can tell their passion and their love. LeBron loves basketball. You can tell how they take care of their body, how they compete every time they're on the floor. Kevin Garnett. Now you could put those people against someone who is just as talented, just as tall, just as ripped up, just as athletic, and you'd be like, damn, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. The difference is they love it, man. They're called gym rats. You know what I mean? When the arena is dark, they still in their shoe. So the idea is that when you're done or when you're trying to make a movie, are you still shooting? Are you still picking up the iPhone trying to figure it out? Are you still writing a script when, you know, you bust the tables into midnight? Like, do you really have that? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I had said this earlier, that's the metaphysical of it all. Like, I've laid on the floor of someone's house, you know what I mean? And slept on someone's couch trying to do this, you know? So when you sacrifice that and you push to do this, then I don't think you need any more motivation. You know what I mean? So that would be my closing for that.
Yeah, that was awesome. First, we went from like a business lesson to church. I needed that.
If you're going to get in this business, you're going to need a lot of prayer and a lot of God. I can tell you that.
Oh, my God. Well, Deon and Ephraim, thank you so much for your time today. This has truly been a great conversation and a blessing. Thank you so much. That was Deon Taylor and Ephraim Salaam on their unique journey into television and filmmaking. Deon has a few projects in post-production right now, so check out Hidden Empire Film Group's website for more details. And if you haven't seen it, check out the series Bel-Air. All episodes are currently streaming on Peacock. Oh yeah, and in that McKinsey & Company report, they report the value of achieving racial equity in Hollywood at $10 billion. That's a lot of money to leave on the table. So check out their report, Black Representation in Film and TV, the Challenges and Impact of Increasing Diversity. And that's our show. Thanks to Deon and Ephraim for this amazing DIY masterclass. Now, did you know it's TV awards season and AAFCA is gearing up for their annual TV honors? Well, we are. And you can check out our previous winners and shows by visiting our website or on our AAFCA channel on YouTube. So until next time, keep your head up.